On the western coast of an island roughly the size of Belgium, there is a complex of low white buildings that produce something nobody else on Earth can produce. The buildings belong to a company called Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, abbreviated TSMC. Inside them, hundreds of robots and a handful of engineers operate machines worth more than entire aircraft carriers. Each machine prints transistors smaller than a strand of DNA onto silicon wafers the size of dinner plates. Right now, in front of you, almost every advanced piece of technology you own was made in those buildings. The chip in your phone, the chip in your laptop, the chip in your car, the graphics processor training every artificial intelligence on the planet, the processor inside an F-35 fighter jet, even the rover NASA landed on Mars. They all came from this island, Taiwan. Population 23 million. Surface area 36,000 square kilometers, smaller than Switzerland, sitting 130 kilometers off the coast of mainland China. This island manufactures roughly 60% of the world's semiconductors and over 90% of the most advanced chips. Apple, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, even China's Huawei, when sanctions allow it, all funnel their orders here. The global economy runs on Taiwanese silicon, and the silicon comes from one company on one island. If those buildings stopped for a single week, every car factory on Earth would idle within 30 days. To understand why, you have to look at what they actually make. Taiwan is small. Its longest dimension is 394 kilometers, from the northern tip to the southern coast. You could drive across it in 5 hours on a good highway. The whole population fits into an area smaller than the American state of West Virginia. Most of that area is uninhabitable mountain range. The central spine of the island climbs nearly 4,000 meters above sea level. The cities cluster on a thin strip of flat coastline on the western edge, facing the Taiwan Strait, Taipei in the north, Taichung in the middle, Tainan and Kaohsiung in the south. Between them, a handful of science parks. The most famous is Hsinchu Science Park, which sits on roughly 6.5 square kilometers of land outside the city of Hsinchu. Inside that small park, multiple semiconductor companies operate fabrication facilities that collectively make the most economically valuable objects ever produced by humans, measured per gram. To put that in scale, a state-of-the-art 3-nanometer chip is worth roughly 70 times its weight in pure gold. The wafers that get cut into these chips are also produced in volume that would shock most people. Several 100,000 of them every month on this one island in factories that need clean rooms, cleaner than operating theaters, and humidity tolerances measured in tenths of a percent. This concentration is not an accident. It is the result of a specific industrial strategy that Taiwan has been executing since the late 1970s. That strategy had a founder. In 1987, an engineer named Morris Chang founded TSMC on a radical idea. Chang had spent 25 years at Texas Instruments before Taiwan's government invited him to build a chip industry from nothing. Instead of designing and manufacturing chips the way Intel did, TSMC would build only what other companies designed and never compete with its own customers. This was the birth of the foundry model. A company could now design a world-class chip without ever owning a factory, and a new generation of chip companies sent their designs here instead of building their own. The reason no one else can build their own equivalent fab comes down to one company in the Netherlands and one specific machine. That company is ASML. The machine is the EUV lithography system. It uses extreme ultraviolet light generated by hitting droplets of molten tin with high-powered lasers 50,000 times per second. The tin vaporizes into plasma that emits light at a wavelength of 13.5 nanometers. That light bounces through a chamber of impossibly precise mirrors and patterns, circuits onto silicon. Each machine weighs 180 tons. Each one costs roughly $380 million. ASML produces about 50 of them a year. TSMC operates the largest fleet of EUV machines in the world. Roughly half of the global installed base sits in Taiwan. Without an EUV machine, you cannot make chips below the 5-nanometer process node. Without those nodes, you cannot make modern smartphones, modern graphics cards, modern AI accelerators. The transistors become too small for older equipment to print. Even with the machine, you still need to know how to use it. TSMC has been refining its process recipes for 30 years. Knowledge of which photoresist chemistries work at which wavelengths, which gas flow rates produce, which etch profiles, lives inside its engineering teams. That knowledge cannot be copied with a stolen blueprint. It has to be re-derived slowly by an entire industry of skilled people. Every new fab built outside Taiwan is starting from years behind. Look around the room you are in right now. Every device with a screen, every appliance with a microcontroller, every modern vehicle contains at least one chip. Most of those chips trace their manufacturing back to Taiwan. The most obvious dependency is the iPhone. Apple designs its A-series and M-series chips in California, but the actual fabrication happens at TSMC in Hsinchu and Tainan. Every iPhone shipped in the last 8 years contains a Taiwanese-made processor. Apple is TSMC's largest single customer, accounting for roughly a quarter of the foundry's revenue. NVIDIA is the second story. The graphics processors that train every large language model, every image generator, every recommendation engine are designed by NVIDIA and manufactured exclusively at TSMC. AMD is the third. Both companies are what the industry calls fabless. They own the designs, but no factories. Their entire output flows through Taiwan. Beyond the famous names, the dependency runs into far less obvious places. Automotive electronics. The microcontroller in your car's airbag system. The chip that manages the battery in an electric vehicle. The processor inside the smart thermostat on your wall. The network switch in the data center hosting this video. Even legacy chips made on older process nodes increasingly come from Taiwan because TSMC has the capacity and other foundries do not. When a single fire at one Renesas factory in Japan in 2021 shut down half the world's automotive chip supply for months, it became clear how fragile the entire arrangement is. And Taiwan is in a worse spot than Japan. 130 kilometers west of Taiwan, across a stretch of water called the Taiwan Strait, is mainland China. Beijing considers Taiwan to be a Chinese province. Taipei considers itself a sovereign democracy. The two governments have disagreed about this since 1949. For most of that time, the disagreement was a slow-burning political dispute. In the last decade, it has become the most consequential geopolitical flashpoint on the planet. This is because of the chips. The phrase used by strategists is the silicon shield. The idea is that the entire world has such a deep economic interest in Taiwan's fabs continuing to operate that no major power can allow them to be destroyed. The United States, China, Europe, Japan, every advanced economy on Earth depends on the silicon coming off the wafers in Hsinchu. If those fabs were taken offline by a war, A blockade, a missile strike, a cyber attack, or even a serious earthquake, the global cost is estimated at over $1 trillion in the first year alone. The United States Navy patrols the Taiwan Strait specifically because of this. China conducts regular military exercises near the island. The Japanese have started openly stating that Taiwan's security is essential to Japan's own security. Multiple Western intelligence agencies have publicly assessed that a Chinese invasion attempt is possible within the decade, and in the meantime, every advanced chip you will ever buy continues to be made in fabs that sit, geographically, in the crosshairs. You can change phones. You can change car brands. You can change cloud providers. You cannot easily change the island that makes the chips inside all of them. Multiple governments are trying. The United States has launched a roughly $50 billion program called the CHIPS Act to subsidize new fabs on American soil. TSMC itself is building plants in Arizona and Japan, partly under pressure from the same governments that fear the concentration risk. Intel is spending tens of billions trying to recover the leading-edge manufacturing capability it lost a decade ago. Samsung is racing to catch up. Europe has its own €10 billion chip strategy. None of these efforts will produce a real alternative for at least another 5 to 7 years. Building a single state-of-the-art fab takes about 4 years and $10 to $20 billion before it can produce a single chip. Training the workforce takes longer. Building the supply chain of specialized photoresist, gas, and mask suppliers takes longer still. And while all this happens, Taiwan keeps making the chips that everyone is trying to stop depending on. So when you pick up your phone, when your car starts, when your bank verifies your card, you are using a system whose single point of failure is a fab complex on the western coast of an island 90% of the world has never visited. We built the global economy on top of that fab, and we did it without quite admitting to ourselves that we did.